Okay, good.
Great.
All right, why don't we just get started? And people are joining as we're talking. I think most people are on right now anyway. So why don't we start with a form that I forwarded to you, and you can say your name in your native language, and then tell people where you work. So why don't we start with I?
Okay. こんばんは。私の名前は鈴木愛です。Hi everyone. My name is Ai Suzuki. I'm working in Myanmar and Bangladesh for fishing cats and also for Ilyamote Cat as consultancy. Very nice to meeting you.
That's going to be hard to beat, Badru.
Who can beat with Japanese? No one, right? Ezina Lyanje, Badru Mugerwa. Hello everyone, my name is Badru Mugerwa. I come from Uganda, where I work at 3 forest protected areas to conserve the African golden cat in Uganda. It's nice seeing everyone on the panel tonight and on the discussion. Thank you.
Jose?
Hola a todos, muy buenos días, tardes o noches. Mi nombre es José Daniel Ramírez de Costa Rica. Hi everybody, my name is Jose. I'm from Costa Rica. I work for the Costa Rica Wildlife Foundation, where I'm the coordinator of the program on sea life conservation, where we work in the highlands of the Talamanca mountain range here in Costa Rica.
And I'm a board member of Costa Rica Wildlife Foundation. So there's a disclaimer. Tadeu.
Oi, meu nome é Tadeu Gomes de Oliveira, sou do Brasil. Hi, my name is Tadeu Gomes de Oliveira. I'm from Brazil. I coordinate a conservation and research program called Wildcats of Brazil, which I do myself the parts in the savannas, Caatinga. We are focusing on northern tiger cat, Leopardus tigrinus, Leopardus bracatus, which is one of the variations of the Colo-Colo or the Pampas cat group, Jaguarundi, and we're trying to start a program for the Pampas cat from the south, Munoai, which is in critical situation. But we have stuff going on with margays and southern tiger cats and Jeffrey's cat as well. So we cover pretty much all the species found in Brazil.
Badru, why don't you summarize your project in 2 or 3 minutes? I think you better unmute.
Oh, sorry about that. So my work in Uganda engages local communities and the Uganda Wildlife Authority, which is the national park, government office in charge of wildlife and national parks. And what I do with the communities and then the National Park Service is to help communities implement community-based conservation initiatives to stop poaching or illegal hunting, which happens to be a serious threat to the African golden cats, both in Uganda and I bet across the species range. So these initiatives include pig farming, or piggery as we call it back in Uganda, which we implement in form of a pig seed bank. And the way it works is that we give a female pig to a poacher who in return not only stops poaching, but then also helps the National Park Service and us to keep an eye out for someone who is engaged or involved in poaching. And also the same poacher is obliged to donate 1 female piglet to his nearest neighbor. And the idea is that the initiative is not only stopping poaching, but also it's directly contributing to local livelihoods, because this is one of the drivers we've come to learn is the biggest cause or driver for poaching in the areas where I work. And then the second initiative, which we are very excited about, is the mobile dental clinics, which we implement under the slogan of Health Smiles for Conservation, or the other way around, Conservation for Health Smiles. And the idea also here is that we give people free oral treatment and free oral care. And in return, what the communities do is to provide some sort of community policing against poaching. But then also it directly adds value on conservation. You know, people tend to appreciate having the African golden cats in their backyard because they are able to access this service, which is literally inaccessible to them. So that's what we basically do, and that's what I work on at the moment. Thank you.
Jose, why don't you talk about your project for a few minutes?
Yeah, so as I was telling you, in Costa Rica, we are working with the Leopardus tigrinus oncilla, which is the northern tigrina or the oncilla of Central America. And right now we are understanding some basic ecological features. We are trying to understand, first of all, where is the occurrence area of the species in the highlands of Costa Rica or the highlands of the Talamanca mountain range specifically. And but our main concern is to understand the threats that the species is facing. So the way we have been working with the foundation all these years is working with the communities in order to reduce the threats like poaching and habitat loss by getting the people from the communities involved with the species, involved with its habitat. And so yeah, and we are also trying to understand the taxonomic position of the species. It seems like the subspecies we have in Central America is a different species from the one we have in South America. So we are also starting to collect some genetic samples in order to understand what's the situation with the subspecies we have in Central America, because it's already trended. It is vulnerable by the IUCN, and if we get to define it as a new species, it will be very probably more trended than this already is. So we are working with the people. We are working with genetics, doing some molecular analysis, and we are working on some ecological features as well to understand the species.
Tadeu, you have lots of issues you're dealing with, but speak about your project for a little while.
Okay, my focus right now is on we're trying to understand the more detailed threats to the species where we have actual field working going on. We noticed from our monitoring program that some detailed habitat use and stuff makes a significant change in the conservation actions we have to take, because we thought they were occurring in several areas of habitats that they are actually not. So those areas are not suitable for the species, which means that the situation was not as good as we thought they would be. Our conservation action is focusing on the dog issues, because we found out that the dogs, domestic dogs in the conservation units and around it, are the main threat for the tiger cats. And actually for the Pampas cat and Jaguarundis also, which are all in the same area. So we are trying now, the pandemic put it on hold, to collect samples to analyze which actual diseases the domestic dogs inside the Mirador State Park are posing for the wild carnivores, for the wild cats. And we are also doing some environmental work around it with the kids, both within and outside the park and in the neighboring cities. And for our amazement, there is so little knowledge they have outside the park of the wildlife they have right next door. It's amazing. They are more aware with African wildlife, Badru, than with Brazilian wildlife, than with the savanna wildlife. Another main issue we are concerned right now, we are reassessing the red status for all the Brazilian species. So we're doing like, we're reviewing it, detailing the analysis, putting and separating the species. There was a new proposal for the split of the Pampas cat group, which we are accepting it because of its conservation concern, because Brazilian legislation does not apply for subspecies or populations. So in order to have actual hard conservation action for to save the southern population of the Pampas cat, which is Leopardus munuai, we are accepting it as a valid species, and we're pushing the Brazilian government to do the reassessment, a separate reassessment, because it put it likely on the critically endangered threat level, because the population, as we are finding out, it should be in the low hundreds or the few tenths. So it's like, it's really, really, really critical. This is for the Pampas cat from the south. The Pampas cat that I'm working with in here in Mirador State Park is in a better situation. And as I was mentioning before, talking to Ai and Badru, before I thought the meeting was actually on, is that we noticed from our last field trip that the Caatinga population of the Jaguarundi and northern tiger cat dropped. It was, but we don't think it's related to the pandemic itself, but to some unknown reason that I'm still puzzled to try to figure out what actually is happening to that population. So that sums up in general what we're doing. There's also some ecological stuff, but conservation wise, that is our target right now.
Ai, can you summarize in a couple minutes what you're working on so that everyone understands where you are and what you're doing?
I'm working in Myanmar and Bangladesh and in Japan, but let me focus on Myanmar today. And my project in Myanmar has three aspects. One is conducting conservation work, of course. And the second one is in Myanmar, we don't know where the fishing cat is. So try to understand where is the fishing cat is in the countries. And then the third aspect is increase the number of younger people and students who get involved in small conservation work in Myanmar. So for conservation work, I particularly focus on community engagement as well as habitat loss. Snare is the main threat. So this snare is not for cat, but anything people can get for the subsistence use, they eat. And cat is important protein source for some area, and also their meat is cheaper than chicken. So we are trying to reduce the poaching by creating a job opportunity and to fulfill their needs, what they are expecting from hunting. So we are developing two schemes. One is turning a hunter into camera trappers, but benefit sharing of this scheme is not very widely distributed within the community. So I'm developing other business scheme by connecting people between in the field and Japan. So some of small cats are very popular in Japan. So we are trying to make kind of platform that Japanese people can buy the photo or video of cat, which taken by local people. And on the platform, the local people can take Japanese people to a virtual tour in their mangrove and other area and teach how to cook local dishes or etc. So Japanese people pay those contents as kind of donations, and their benefit and donation goes to our local people. So that is I try to develop now. And the second aspect is try to understand distribution of fishing cat, and we are keeping a new place to looking where they are in the countries. And third aspect is to increase the number of people, especially young people who are get involved in. So far, the several master students get degree and continue their PhD and conservation work for fishing cats in Myanmar. And also new students are coming constantly during the project. And so my colleague and I are planning to make small course for field conservation in her zoology department to make more useful and to make open to many students. But under this circumstance, this is not started yet. So this is my project at this moment.
From a recent survey, we found that projects that depend on physical tourism and also funding from zoos are suffering because, well, there's no tourism going on, and no one is going to zoos. So those two sources of funding for global conservation projects have virtually dried up. But I don't think any, small cats have not been a real tourist item, except for the project in Mongolia that depends on tourism to see Pallas cats. But having a virtual, like a virtual tour, such as you're offering in Myanmar, where people can see pictures and then have a little virtual tour, is a way out of the whole situation. So that's really good. Badru, what do you think the project is going to look like in like 3 years?
Well, where can I start? Like big dreams, big dreams. Yeah, I think there is so much I would like to say in 3 years, but I think here I'll speak to the 3 key, subset of the dreams, of my 3-year dreams. And one of them is to see the number of African golden cats caught in snares, caught and left in snares to rot or to die a slow, painful death, reduces. I want to see the number of community members caught and arrested inside the national parks as poachers also declining. I would like to say in 3 years that the law enforcement staff are not arresting people from the communities because they are inside the forest setting snares for bush pigs or forest antelopes. But most importantly, what I want to say that the number of community members involved in the 2 initiatives I mentioned above, that is the pig farming and also the mobile dental clinics, increase within the next 3 years. So those are my 3 targets. Keeping fingers crossed, let's see how it goes.
I would like to see an increase in the number of participants in the African Golden Cat Working Group. I think we have 3 people or something like that. And the information we have on African Golden Cat is really lacking. The information we have from Angola is based on a single skin purchased in 1860.
Yeah.
Yet this is shown on the IUCN map.
Yeah, clearly. I think, in my time as the coordinator from Africa for the African small wild cats, it's on the top of my agenda. And I would like to speak more to this, maybe as we go along in the panel discussion, but I think this is really, really important. I would like to see the distribution map, the IUCN distribution map of the African golden cat revised, because I think there are gaps in there which we can fill. But again, I cannot fill them as an individual. So we need a network of in-country, personnel, people who are working on the species in their own countries, people in Angola, people in Sierra Leone, people in Cameroon, across the species range. And one of the first things I would like to see is to have this map revised. And at the moment, for 2 years now, actually, I've been gathering location or presence points where we know the species is occurring today, not 1860, I mean today, or in the past 5-10 years. And with that information, what I hope to achieve this information is that I'm going to try and reestablish the current or the updated distribution of the species across the range. So that's really, really important for us. And for the species, of course. I mean, we need to because if we don't understand where the species is still present, we will never understand the threats it's facing. So we need to understand what the species is, then we understand the threats it's facing, and we come up with solid threat reduction initiatives to conserve the species.
Yeah, thank you, Badru. Jose, under the flagship of the umbrella of the top here, Costa Rica Wildlife Foundation has done a lot of work. Esteban has been very successful with the tapir, not the jaguar, which is really interesting. So where do you see things going in 3 years? Are we going to have a new species?
Yeah, yeah, we have been thinking a lot around the idea of getting to make the oncilla also as a flagship species, but yeah, we have realized that this has been well done in the foundation with the tapir. So right now, with the oncilla, we're not thinking of making it a flagship, but we would like to make it known for the Costa Rican society, because it happens the same as Tadeu was exposing, that the people here in the country is more familiarized with the fauna from Africa. They know what's an elephant or what's a giraffe, but they don't know our own species. So yeah, I don't know if flagship will be the name, but we would like to make it more important for the people, that the people take it as a species of their own. They appropriate of the oncilla as a very unique species that we only have in the highlands of Costa Rica. And yeah, this will be great. And yeah, of course, yeah, I hope we will have a completely new species. We are already taking some samples. We are starting getting samples from ex situ places, rescue centers, zoos, museums, etc. And in the December or January next year, we're starting to go into the field looking for samples also in the field. And yeah, hopefully in 3 years, no more than that, we will have a new species. That's my hope.
It seems to me, having been to Costa Rica, walked around with you, that the oncilla is the sort of an analog of the huina. The habitat is very similar, except in Chile, it's found near the coast.
Yeah.
And in Costa Rica, it's found in the very highlands in the cloud forest, where it's constantly raining and you're walking on moss, and you don't know if you're walking on the ground or 6 feet above the ground. But the habitats appear to be very similar.
Yeah, sure. And also that's why we think it's very important to make this regional coordination also, because we can learn from other projects, as you said. We think the ecology of the oncilla might be very similar to the huina, but we doesn't know much about the oncilla ecology. And yeah, as you said, it's a species from the cloud forest. It mainly habits the paramo habitat and the oak forest. Oak forests in Costa Rica are plenty of and full of mice. So we are also hoping, and we guess that the mice are its main prey also. So we will start studying also some ecological aspects in regard to this, thinking about the similarity with the huina and other species of small cats in America.
Jose is too modest because he's an expert on rodents, and he wrote the book on rodents in Costa Rica. So he knows a lot about the prey.
Yeah, actually this part is, I'm really excited to start with this part, because I will get back to my roots to start cutting mice, but right now with a different question. Right now it's not for answering a question about the mice, but about its main predator. So it's really excited. I have been studying the relationship of the mice with the trees they disperse. They eat oak seeds in the oak forest. So right now, to see this ecological interaction from the other part, the mice right now are not being the predator, but being the prey. It will be really, really interesting and really excited. Yeah.
I made a gift to Jose of 50 Sherman traps. And I never saw anybody happier.
Yeah, best gift ever.
Today, what do you think in 3 years? What are things going to look like? Are we going to have any cats left in Brazil?
Yeah.
Is Mirador State Park going to be occupied by thousands of people?
I hope not, because we are developing talks with the State Environmental Agency, and they are actually thrilled that we start taking over the park again. I was the manager for the park a few years ago, and they are interested in trying to make that thing happen again. But we are also talking about making the northern tiger cat the flagship species, not only for the park, but for the whole state. And they actually loved the idea. And this is like in the local state level, let's say. But we are also trying to hit hard on national media to make the small cats well aware for people, so that they would know what they are, they would know their threats, they know how sensitive they are. And the most important thing is that they must be aware that the small cats, if not including the ocelot here, their survival relies on private lands, because except for some heavens like Mirador State Park, where you can have, or for there is a safe haven for Pampas cat, for Bracatus Pampas cat, and for Tigrinus Pampa, northern tiger cat, and Serra do Tabuleiro for Gutulus, which are like safe havens, isolated, and Serra dos Órgãos for the margay. Pretty much all other conservation areas, protected areas, are safe havens for ocelots. And where the ocelots are, usually we don't get like sizable numbers of the smaller cats anywhere. So it's like people awareness and having they join us in small cat conservation. We're trying to do this in the Caatinga right now. We will start doing this in the Pampas, for the Munuai Pampas cat situation as well. And Jim, we are trying to see if we can start a tourism program for margays and Jeffrey's cat in the south, in the Pampas cat region, so that we can raise money for Pampas cat conservation there. So this is like my main expectations, and to see the numbers of cats, instead of plummeting down, rising up, starting to rise up again. We just finished like doing an assessment on all natural habitat available for them in Brazil. It's like whatever was not clear cut, whatever was not destroyed. We're not talking about secondary vegetation. We're talking about what is left that they could actually use. And sometimes the figures we get is like, sometimes it's scary. And from our assessment, from our monitoring programs, is that in 93% of Brazil, their population size numbers are expected to be really, really, really low. We're talking about 1 per 100 square kilometer on that average, 1 to 3 per 100 square kilometers max. So it's like for 93% of the country, except for some safe havens such as Mirador, which can have a sizable and a safe population for northern tiger cat, provided that our efforts right now to fight the diseases of dogs down there succeed. And we're trying to do this, we start trying to do the same in some other areas, but we have limitations for that. And talking about with farmers, which in the Caatinga and in the south, to see if we can have them as our partners for small cat conservation. It's like trying to focus a lot on that interaction with the landowners of where the cats are, because we see that that's the way for that conservation. because we're not, the conservation protected areas we have in Brazil, they are protected by law, but it's not, there's no good park guards or anything. So what is the point? They're protected just by law. Mirador State Park is a protected area, but there's hunting there. Luckily, the hunting, the poaching does not affect the small cats, but the hunters bring dogs, and dogs bring diseases, and diseases kill cats. We noticed when we started in Mirador in 2005, in one specific area, there was no record of the northern tiger cat, of tigrinos there. And like 15 years later, we found the highest population density ever of northern tiger cat there. So what was that? Luckily, likely some sort of disease related thing, because the local people, they have mentioned, because fox are easily seen there. There was like some, in the late 90s, drop in the fox population to almost nothing. And then it rebounded some later on. And we feel that the same might have happened with the tiger cat, which just shows that how dangerous dogs are for disease transmission. And for the southern pampas cat, one scary thing is they are also killing the whatever is left of the pampas cat there. It's like one of the picture we posted on the internet. It's like it shows the Munuai pampas cat like in a crouching position. It was that specific animal was facing domestic dogs, but luckily the farmer was in our side and controlled the dogs, so the cat was not killed. So this is like a major issue that we were not aware like few years ago in Brazil. I would say even like, yeah, I would say like less than a year ago, when the records for the study Mirador came out, we were not aware how dangerous disease transmission and now dog predation is for the small cats in general, whether they be the pampas cat down south, the pampas cat up north, tiger cats, any of the species, margays or jaguarundis. They are a threat that we're hoping to educate people, to vaccinate people. We will now start a vaccination program in Mirador, but it's like we're waiting for the doors to be open again because of the pandemic. Several areas we are not allowed to get into yet. So it's like, it's confusing, but only now we're starting to move on with the concept in place conservation, not only like dealing with on the political level and also talking about the educational level, local with the kids. With the media, we're trying to hit it as hard as we can right now. I think that sums up our expectations for, and I am actually positive about it. I think we're gonna succeed. We're gonna start having like really good stuff. I would say in a year and a half, we're gonna start seeing it flourish, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I'm going to ask Ai to tell us about what the future looks like in Myanmar. Because Myanmar has always been like a black hole for us. But I'd like to ask the participants to start typing their questions on chat so that we can all see them and start to answer some of the questions from our participants. Ai, what does the future look like in Myanmar? Are we going to find out more? Are fishing cats going to be all over Myanmar?
I hope so. If I start with a big dream, I want to be told from local community that, hey, I don't need you. We can take over your conservation work. So that is my dream. But the realistic scenario, maybe I would like to success as the model in very small scales, and then want to get a local community engagement. So they are doing camera trapping survey themselves, and then they are making the business by virtual tourings and sharing film and photos using the platform we are trying to create. And then they can kind of self-sustain conservation project by local communities. And then with those success, I want to send the message. We don't need to take hard action to the local people, which is create unnecessary conflict. We can use soft actions, and then we can also reduce the poaching pressure. That is, I want to succeed within the 3 years. Again, that is finger crossed.
You think the carrot works better than the stick?
Yes, I believe.
Definitely, there's wide agreement that
I agree. Absolutely.
we're seeing it with Badru's project, and certainly in Costa Rica, we know when people participate, it's incredible what can happen. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the regional coordinators for a moment. We know that we're missing some regions, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. They'll come on board. But what do you see as the role of the regional coordinators? The survey, the questionnaire that I sent out had results all over the map from doing almost everything for everybody, which we can't possibly do. But how do you see the role of the coordinator helping our group? Does anybody want to volunteer?
I can start. Well, my idea is to have, first of all, is to find out everybody that is actually doing actual conservation, not talking about only research, but actual conservation action with the small cats, and trying to have us coordinate amongst ourselves and share our experiences. We are willing to provide every kind of material, educational material we are having, to make it available for people at the website so that they can access and they can start doing it. It's like their own stuff, even on like a person by person stuff. Students that are doing some sort of camera trapping stuff in some places, that they can talk to the community, bring in those leaflets, those stuff that talk about small cat conservation, so that we can provide them with some tools for maximizing cat action where we cannot be. And I think that's really important. We're gonna try to improve our educational material. That's what we are doing right now, to have it and make it available to talk like to kids from several levels, to talk to farmers, especially, which we have realized that they could be actually a good, they could be like cats friendly. We can start like all sort of things, integration, unity. That's, I would say that I would say that could sum up the thing we want. I would like to see happening as a regional coordinator for Northern South America, which handles a lot of the species and a lot of several distinct issues from north to south, depending on the region. So that's how I see it for the moment. Ideas will come up, but for right now, that would be it.
Yeah, I think, just add to what you have just said, I absolutely agree. I think like the coordinators can be, like that missing link between the in-country conservationists who are working to conserve these small wild cats in their home countries with the rest of the world. And this is possible. I would think of like several vehicles that can be used to achieve this, and one of them could be just like a newsletter, where people tell stories about the species and the regions they represent as the coordinators. but then also, providing that lead, on the small wildcat conservation space, taking that lead. For instance, I will explain this with an example from Africa, where we are talking about revising the distribution map. So one of the roles of the coordinator in this case would be to build a network of in-country people working on the African golden cat in Africa, and reach out to them and put together a network or a working group on the species, which will firstly work to kind of make these revisions we need to make, but then also most importantly, come up with a conservation action plan for the species we conserve. Because I'll give still on the African golden cat, there is no any conservation action plan I am aware of. So that's still a huge, huge black hole. We don't know what's happening there. And I would think like these coordinators, the coordinators for the small wild cats, one of the goals or the targets would be to come up with a solid conservation action plan for the species.
I think we should also make a small cat global conservation action plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
The suggestion, we need the regional staff, just like Badru said. There is one for Brazil for the small cats, but I think we need like to make like the general small cat conservation plan global, a small cat conservation plan. So I think that's a challenge for us. This is something that we should start thinking while we develop our regional coordinator issues in our specific regions, but also keep that in mind, to have this as a goal for this 2-year plan, to start, at least to start it, maybe not have it all finished, but at least to start it up, so that we can show the world what the small cat situation actually is, in fact. Because all they care is about these big cats, big cats, big cats, big cats. The small cats are always neglected. And let's try to change this. And we can change it politically, let's say. I would say politically, quote unquote, at a global level, by doing something like this, global small cat conservation action. That will require, Badru, for you to start working on the African cats before we get to that level. But at least it's like, that's what it is. We need action. We need action now. We cannot wait. We cannot wait for research. We cannot wait for this, because if wait, they might be gone.
Yeah.
That's the discussion we've been having about the Pampas cat from the Pampas, the actual Pampas cat, actually. Whether it's either we do something right now or it's gonna be gone, because we don't know anything, pretty much almost nothing about it. It's ecology, it's ecological need. We have some good issues, we have some good insights, but if we're gonna wait for science to build up, it's gonna be good.
Recently, the Fishing Cat Conservation Alliance was incorporated in Texas, thanks to Devin, and is now a nonprofit in the U.S. So we've created another nonprofit organization, and we have projects throughout every range country. We have projects across the geographic range of the fishing cat. But there are several other cats in Asia that we're not doing so well on. Can you comment on what's happening? How does the new coordinator bring other groups of species in?
I think in Asia, there is a small group. They are working in very small scales, but nobody knows. So the first things I want to start is trying to list up those projects, small project, which is actually working on conservations, and then see what is the status. Yeah,
we have a lot of work to do in particularly Southeast Asia. Jose, you're the only guy working on small cats in all of Central America.
Yeah,
There's not a lot to coordinate right now.
yeah, no, I have realized recently that there are some other groups in, for example, El Salvador and in Guatemala, there's people working with wild cats. They're not focused mainly on small cats, but they are doing the research. They want to know how they can help with the coordination, and they want to get their programs also to get know about the people. So we will work with them. We will pay special attention on small cats and not that much on big cats, as Tadeu says, because big cats already have a lot of people interested in. So we want to reveal the importance of small cats. So these small programs or small NGOs or groups, they're interested in helping, and they are more than welcome to help.
That's great that you're finding more interest. You're discovering more interest, because I'm not aware of any. And I don't see proposals coming into Mohammed bin Zayed Species Conservation Fund or Rufford Foundation or several of the other granting institutions. Our newsletter went out to more than 200 people. I'd say 2/3 were donors. And the response from the donor community with respect to the newsletter was just overwhelmingly, we need to see more newsletters, and we need to see more projects in those newsletters. So through the newsletter, we can make more projects known to the donor communities. And believe me, they're supporting our projects already. So these donors want to know more about our projects. They're really our partners because they're providing the money for what we're doing. They're very interested and keen to learn more about all the other projects, not just the 4 that were presented, but they want to know more. They're asking for more. So I'd like to use the newsletter to communicate with our donors and to include your websites in the newsletter so that the donors can contact you directly. They don't have to go through me or anybody else. They can go to you directly and support your project. And I see the newsletter as our vehicle to reach us as a community, but also the much bigger donor community that we have. There are more donors than there are people working on small cats, I think. That's where we are. And we always said that small cats have a small but dedicated group of supporters. And this is true. They've been engaged for many years, some for more than a decade. And the newsletter has been a big help for them. And I'd like to encourage everybody to make contributions to the newsletter and include your website so that donors can contact you directly. I've asked James Denoff Berg to give a Zoom presentation on conservation as a social science. He's a very popular speaker. And we can have other Zoom calls like this, other Zoom meetings like this, if you have any ideas. So we all have lots of ideas. Let's share them among our colleagues and have more of these kind of conversations for our whole group so that anybody can present what they want to present to the rest of us. I know that there are participants who would love to be presenting their projects on Zoom and talk about them for us and the donor community. So in the future, I'd like to see not only our group of small cat people around the world, but also our donors joining these calls. I think it's really important for them to see you face to face and get to know all of you and hopefully support our projects around the world. So I see this only growing and including more people on our Zooms. So I think the next newsletter I'll send out I'll send out an announcement that Badru and I will be speaking at around 12:15 on October the 10th It's a Saturday at the WCN Expo. So Badru and I will be speaking about our projects for, I think, 20 minutes, not enough time. 20 minutes, Badru?
Yeah, you only have one, I have 19.
Right.
So you won't have much to say.
Right. So I'll speak for like 4 minutes. It's already been recorded.
Yeah.
And then Badru speaks for 12 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I'll close by telling the world about our other projects around the world. And I'll send out that announcement for all of you and all of our donors. Also, this Zoom is being recorded so that we can share it with the donor community. And I can't emphasize enough that the donors are watching and they're interested. I see more money going into small cats than ever before right now. We have a huge opportunity to have a big impact. And the bigger impact we have and the greater success we have, nothing generates money like success. And the donors will respond. And they're interested and they're keen. So let's keep in touch through the newsletter, but also through the regional coordinators. If you want to put something in the next newsletter, I'd like to keep it to four what MailChimp calls blocks. I'm looking for a guest author to write the first article. You recall that I wrote the first little block, but I don't intend to write the first block every time. I'm not a king and I'm not a dictator. I want other people to write that block. And so I'm searching for a guest author that Tadeu and I knew quite well at the University of Florida. I've asked him to write something for us. So I hope to surprise you all with a guest author in our next newsletter. But anyway, I'll send out an announcement about our WCN talk, and perhaps I can get James Danoff-Berg to talk about why conservation is a social science on the next Zoom. Let's see if we have any questions from our participants. How many words on the newsletter? I think the function of the newsletter is to write 1 or 2 paragraphs and then connect the reader to your website. So we don't need to put everything in the newsletter that we want everybody to know, but more is better. I think or less is better. Less is better. If you can write a few paragraphs and include your website, then that gives the donor the opportunity to visit your website. Yeah. And I think that's generally true for all of us, is we want to learn about your project through like an abstract and then visit your website to learn a lot more about your project. I probably said more words than you're going to write in the paragraph. Does anybody want to add anything else? Right now, we don't have projects in North Africa or South Africa. Alex Liwa has his black-footed cat project in South Africa, and also a sandcat project in Morocco. Maybe I can talk to him about being a regional coordinator for North and South Africa. He can tell us about his projects there. And there are other people that we can talk to. So if I don't see any more questions, it's been about an hour. I'd like to thank all of our participants for joining us. And I'd like to thank the panelists for taking the time to participate and allowing me to put them on the spot during our Zoom presentation. I hope you enjoyed hearing them and hearing about all their projects and learning about all these wonderful things that are happening around the world on behalf of small cats. And let's keep it up, and let's try to do more Zooms. And we'll probably wait until after the WCN Expo, because Badru and I have a lot to prepare for and do. It's not just me and Badru talking for 30 minutes and then it ends. We have a question and answer period, but I have a week of events between October 10 and October 17 that I'll be participating in. So I'll be on, it feels like I'm going to be on Zoom a lot during that week at any time of the day. So I have to be available all that time. I also hope to present a Zoom on how to write a good Mohammed bin Zayed Species Conservation Fund proposal. I think that's really important. So I'd like to spend some time on a future Zoom showing you how to write a really good proposal. It would help me when I do the reviews, and it would help you write better proposals, I think, for any proposals that you write. So I'm hoping to do that. And if you have other ideas, let's hear them, because your colleagues are most likely very interested in what you have to say and contribute. So anything else? Anything from the regional coordinators? You're burned out.
I would just say, let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for myself, I will make a lot of research, and I guess next time I'm pretty sure that I will have more information about some other projects in Central America with small cats. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people interested, and people that have ideas or making their own projects start to grow. So yeah, I see good news coming.
And thanks to all the participants for their active chats. Okay, I hope to see you all soon. You'll see me and Badru on October the 10th, I hope.
Yeah, sure. We are on.
We're on.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.